Joining me live now from Newsmax, New York, federal tax practitioner David Selig. David, we welcome you to America's Forum.
Hey, thanks for having me on, JD. It's a real pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you, David, and for years you have been advocating a transfer tax. Can you explain what a transfer tax would entail?
Certainly. Tens of billions of dollars that have never been taxed in the United States, that are earned in the United States, are transferred permanently out of our economy. And my proposal is that we establish a transfer tax on these monies and issue, from the point of transfer, a 1099-T. Now, I have initially advocated a 50% withholding for anyone who can't substantiate that they are conforming to our rules. I'll explain to you how it works. The administration, the Obama administration, has put in a great deal of protections towards people who wire money largely to Mexico and has controlled the fees and the regulations and such, but has done precious little to make sure that our Uncle Sam is receiving his fair share. Now, what they have done is they hold up an individual who is a hardworking guy, maybe sending a few dollars home every week or every other week to his family. Unfortunately, that storyline does not have the stamp of truth upon it. You have a lot of people who have come to this country, are working off the books, and only partially declaring income. In other words, let's say I work 5 days a week. My employer puts me on the books for 2 days a week. I wire money home, and then I claim dependents in Mexico. Section 152 of the Internal Revenue Code allows an illegal alien to claim dependents who live in Mexico and get back a refundable credit, in other words, an earned income credit. And this individual who claims to have only been making $17,000 a year, it turns out at the end of the year has transferred, wired out of our country, $75,000, $85,000, $100,000. Those numbers don't work.
Now, David, about 10 years ago, I wrote my book, Whatever It Takes, and at that point in time, remittances in terms of revenue to Mexico were number 2 on that nation's list, behind its state-run oil company. I want to drill down a little bit more about our Mexican neighbors. Have remittances overtaken the revenues to the state-run oil company in Mexico?
Most certainly, and what makes it so pernicious is it's unilateral. It is a lopsided agreement. We have people making money in the United States and wiring it back to Mexico, and the administration and the General Accounting Office only acknowledges approximately $4.5 billion a year. And that is a fallacious argument. It really stinks on ice. You know, when an individual wires money to Mexico or to another country, again, if they cannot prove at the point of transmission that they are abiding our tax rules, there should be a mandatory withholding. And at the end of the year, when that individual files his or her tax return, if in fact they only made that certain amount, great. If they didn't, we'll have made good and legal taxpayers out of these individuals.
Well, David, I go back to something that JD mentions a lot, Milton Friedman's famous quote, if you want less of something, tax it. Is that another part of the idea here? If you put this tax in, maybe less of this money will be sent to Mexico?
Well, that would not be a bad thing. I have to tell you, when this money leaves our economy, it leaves forever. And a lot of that money is being made through illegal enterprises. And in other words, many of these individuals are coming to the United States, making a great deal of money, utilizing our resources, law enforcement, the court systems, the hospital systems, and they're free riders. They're sending billions of dollars home every year. So let's cut it back, or at least take our fair share. Okay, that storyline of the hard worker, the gardener, that dog don't hunt.
Well, yeah, there's this myth of the noble illegal just trying to feed his or her family, and yet you talk really about what has happened here. It is a paradox. On one hand, it seems that our policy or lack thereof has set up a permanent underclass But on the other hand, there are these gaping holes in terms of the administration or the jurisdiction of our tax laws and tax code. I got to tell you, David, I was blown away during my days in Congress when we would have the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service come by and seem to wave off any notion of really taxing and documenting the illegals who were here. And now we're seeing all sorts of criticism of John Koskinen and those in charge of the IRS right now for targeting conservatives. But there's this same sort of I guess live and let live when it comes to illegals making money in the United States. And your transfer tax and the accompanying necessary documentation is meant to account for this.
Yes, sir, and I would like to say something else. You know, the Internal Revenue Service will issue an individual taxpayer identification number to an illegal alien. Now, the way our tax law works, again, the Section 152, it allows illegal aliens or people who came here legally, mind you, illegal and otherwise, to deduct dependents who live in the two contiguous nations, meaning Mexico and Canada. Unfortunately, there is almost no requirement of proof for the Mexican dependents. I'll tell you what happens. They say the thought process is, well, there's these rural and campestrial areas, the people don't have paper documents, births are recorded in churches, so we'll accept your word for it. So we have individuals who aren't even from Mexico, who claim to be from Mexico, claiming 4 and 5 dependents, getting back tens of thousands of dollars every year from earned income credit that they're not entitled to. We know it's going on. When I first started monitoring this, sir, was over 3 years ago, I challenged any sitting congressman or senator to refute my figures because, unlike a lot of people, I'm not afraid of math. You know, you could have seen the tumbleweed roll by. Section 152 has done more for this type of crime than any other provision in the tax code. If you want to close a loophole, that's the one to do it. That's why you'll see, JD, a proliferation of tax preparation firms in neighborhoods that are predominantly illegal aliens. These individuals will get back $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of refundable credits they're not entitled to, and wire a lot of this ill-gotten loot back home. It's not right. We've got to stop it.
And David, as you mentioned this, a couple of notes come to mind. You talked about the ITIN, the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, and what you have described is this perverse incentive with the permission of the Internal Revenue Service to apply for basically earned income tax credits. And at the same time, we saw this during the last budget battle when Paul Ryan and Patty Murray had this big kumbaya moment where you had a situation where to vote for that budget deal was to deprive our veterans of their benefits, but keep intact the earned income tax credit going to illegals.
It's a disgrace, JD, and I am saying this not only as a veteran of the Marine Corps, but as the father of a decorated U.S. Marine in Afghanistan. It is outrageous that we would put a criminal, and my definition of an illegal alien is that that man or woman is a criminal because they entered the country illegally, before a person who is valiantly serving our nation. It's outrageous. It's a national disgrace. We really need to get our priorities right.
David, as you have made the case for this, you said you sent a challenge to anyone serving in Congress. I'm interested, with your background in tax law, have you reached out to any member of the Ways and Means Committee specifically to sponsor this new type of tax or this change to the tax code? Have you had any success at all talking to your congressmen or U.S. senators?
None whatsoever, but keep in mind, I am up here in New York. And for our elected officials, apparently, supporting illegal aliens is tantamount to a badge of honor. Now, I don't have an axe to grind against anyone who makes their own way and earns an honest living, but what's happening just is not right.
David Selig, tax practitioner, tax expert, and someone who has a very interesting idea. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to talking to you again as events warrant, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you, JD. It was a real pleasure.
Now, John Bachman, I fought taxes during my time in D.C., but I have to tell you, this is one idea for taxation that I believe the time is overdue to get this done.
Now, Mr. Selig makes a compelling argument for this case. It would be interesting to see a Republican, conservative member of the House Ways and Means Committee advocating for a new tax.
Well, we'll see what happens there. You need the revenue, and people need to own up. Your thoughts on this? Very much invited. You can tweet us at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook, and we're coming right back.